Welcome back to the RSET online lecture series on W402 special electrical machines. This lecture will be on a linear induction motor, which is coming under module 6 of KTU syllabus. So in module 6 we need to cover linear induction motor, linear reluctance motor and linear synchronous motor. So in this module we will be discussing about linear motors. Linear motors are recently gaining considerable attention in applications which are requiring linear motion. For example, in robotic assembly system, transportation system, and laser cutting. Now, the major advantage of using linear electric motors is that the thrust or the electromagnetic thrust developed by the motor can be directly applied to the payload without any mechanical conversion or transmission that usually imposes mechanical limitation as far as a rotating electrical machine is considered. Now, so the systems incorporating linear motors can be operated with higher velocity and acceleration, and it has also some more advantages like less friction, no backlash, low mechanical maintenance, and therefore provides longer life. Next is classification of linear motors. Linear motors are classified as power motors, energy motors, and force motors. Power motors are characterized by its high power efficiency, and they are mainly used for traction in cranes and in conveyors. Whereas energy motors are used for the applications which requires high energy efficiency like aircraft, missile launchers, where it is essential to have high acceleration from low to high speed in short time or short duration. So it requires high energy. Now third category is force motors, where they are used in the applications which require high force at rest or low speed during short intervals of time. Say for example, door closers, impact metal forming, stop valves, etc. And they have high force to input power ratio. Compared to rotating motors, these are the advantages of linear motors. It is simple in construction with low maintenance cost, and there is no limitation on tractive effort due to the addition between wheels and the rail. Now, overheating of stationary part is eliminated as the motor moves continuously over cool stationary part, leaving the heated portion behind. For example, in a traction, the primary part or the rotating part, we say that a moving part is the train or a cart, and the stationary part is the rail. So cooling is very much easier because the motor moves continuously over the rails, cooling the or eliminating the heat portion behind. Now the next advantage is unlimited maximum speed, as there is no centrifugal force because we are experiencing linear motion, and the tractive effort is independent of speed and high power to weight ratio. Now, these are the few disadvantages: high capital cost, less power factor, and attractive force between primary and the secondary. We mention, instead of rotor and stator in a rotating electrical machine, we mention here in a linear machine as primary and secondary. Now, moving on to the first type of linear motor, that is linear induction motor. Linear induction motor is a special induction motor which gives linear motion instead of rotational motion in a conventional induction motor. It has an open air gap, refer to figure number 3, figure number C, an entry end and an exit end, and it is made from, or it is derived from, a conventional induction motor. If you cut the induction motor like this and flatten it, you will get a single-ended primary linear induction motor. And if you get the section like this and flatten it, you will get a double primary linear induction motor. And the stator, or what do you say, the stator is known as primary. At the primary, sorry, this is the primary. In the primary, you have slots with three-phase winding. This is the primary. You have slots with three-phase winding, and where we provide the three-phase supply. As a result, flux will be induced, produced by the current carrying conductors, and it will be rectilinear, and that will induce an EMF in the secondary also. Closed loop currents will be induced there in the secondary, and due to the interaction between the secondary current and the field produced by the primary, a force will be formed, developed along the direction of the traveling magnetic field. Now, moving on to the construction of linear induction motor. Basically, it is classified as axial field motors and transverse field motors. In this lecture, we will discuss about the axial field motors. These are derived from traditional rotating squirrel cage induction motor. And for obtaining this, we have to cut an ordinary induction motor axially and open it out, like I have said in the previous slide. If this is the stator and this is the rotor with loads on both stator and the rotor peripheries, we have to cut the conventional motor at this section and extend it or open it axially. You will get a linear induction motor. And here, the part which carries the winding and produces the magnetic field, that is the part known as stator of the conventional motor. Here it is called primary in a linear induction motor. And the part which carries the induced current that interacts with the flux to produce force or thrust is the secondary. In a conventional motor, it is known as a rotor. Moving on to the working principle of an axial field linear induction motor. The primary winding, which carries the primary winding, when it is provided with a three-phase voltage, it develops a traveling wave flux. So in a conventional squirrel cage induction motor, the stator windings, the three-phase stator windings, which is housed in the stator slots, are energized with the three-phase supply, which produces a rotating anti-flux. Here, instead, it produces a traveling wave flux. Now, this flux, the flux direction is shown in the figure. This flux induces EMF in the secondary, and a current starts to flow since it is a closed circuit, and the direction of current is also shown here. Now, due to the interaction between this flux and the current, a force will be produced axially, as shown in the figure. And these three, the traveling wave flux, the current, secondary current, and the force will be mutually perpendicular to each other at all the points. But this particular axial flux motors have limitation. It can be used only for low and medium speed applications. Now, these are a few types of axial flux linear induction motor. Again, it can be categorized as flat linear induction motor and tubular linear induction motor. Flat linear induction motor is again classified as short primary, where the primary, which houses the windings, three-phase windings, will be short compared to the secondary, which houses the conductors. Now we have short secondary, in which the secondary will be shorter compared to the primary. Then we have coreless secondary, where the secondary is only a flat plate or sheet. Again, we have double primary, where you have primary windings on both the sides of the secondary. Now, in tubular linear induction motor, the tubular linear induction motor can be realized by cutting a conventional rotating induction motor axially and re-rolling it along a lengthwise axis. Cut it axially and re-roll it along lengthwise. And then you get the tubular linear induction motor. Now here also an axially traveling magnetic field is produced within the tube when the primary winding is energized by the three-phase supply. The synchronous speed of a linear induction motor is given by 2 times the product of pole pitch and frequency, where frequency F is the frequency of supply voltage in hertz, which gives number of cycles per second, and pole pitch in the sense the induced EMF get its one of the half cycle or get its half cycle when the rotor covers one pole pitch. So for getting one complete cycle of the induced EMF, the rotor needs to cover 2 pole pitch. Therefore, synchronous speed, which is meter per second or distance covered in 1 second, is 2 times that of pole pitch into number of cycles per second. So in when the rotor covers 2 pole pitch, it gets 1 cycle of EMF, induced EMF, and in order to, or number of cycles in 1 second is frequency, so the product will get distance covered per second. Now slip is equal to synchronous speed minus actual speed divided by synchronous speed, Vs minus V by Vs, and neglecting the losses, the gross power developed is Pg is equal to 3 E1 I1 cos phi, which is the power input from the stator side. E1 is the induced EMF in primary per phase, I1 is the primary current per phase, and phi is the power factor angle. Now, induced EMF as per the Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, which is equal to number of turns per phase into rate of change of flux. Now from this, E1 is equal to T phase into d by dt of phi m sin omega t, which is the expression for flux, and by integrating you will get by differentiating you will get E1 equal to T phase into phi m omega cos omega t. Now omega is nothing but 2 pi into f. Now we can write the expression as E1 equal to Em, capital Em into cos omega t. Now E1 or the maximum value will be omega t phase into phi m, and since it is the EMF is having a sinusoidal variation, RMS value will be maximum value by root 2. So by dividing it by root 2, you will get the RMS value of induced EMF. So RMS value is equal to 2 pi f into T phase into phi m divided by root 2. Now further simplifying it and considering the winding factor, you will get RMS value equal to E1 into root 2 pi f into winding factor into T phase into phi m. Specific electric loading is defined as AC is equal to total number of ampere conductors divided by armature periphery or length of the field system at the air gap. Now total number of ampere conductors is equal to current per phase into turns per phase into 2, which gives you the total number of conductors per phase, into 3, which gives you the total number of conductors in all the 3 phases, divided by length of the field system is equal to product of number of poles into pole pitch. Now from this expression we will get the value of current I1 is equal to AC into L divided by 3 into 2 phase. 3 into 2 into turns per phase. So I1 is equal to AC into L, ampere conductors into length of the field system divided by number of conductors per phase into total number of phases. Now we'll define specific magnetic loading VAV is equal to total flux. Maximum flux per pole into number of poles will give you total flux divided by length of the field system into width. So if this is the primary length, this is the length of the field system, and width will be this one. Width of the secondary system. Now from this, total flux is equal to specific magnetic loading VAV into length into width. Now if you neglect the losses in the stator, the air gap power PG is equal to stator input power itself, which is equal to 3 into E1 I1 cos phi. Now substitute the value of RMS induced EMF from the previous slide and simplify. Again, you can substitute the value of maximum flux phi m from this expression. From this expression, you can substitute here, and the current value can be substituted from this expression. So by suitably substituting and simplifying, you will get the final expression as Pg is equal to 3 into root 2 pi kW, which is the winding factor, into T phase turns per phase divided by Vs into Vs by 2 times the pole pitch into specific magnetic loading into length into width divided by P, where P is the number of poles, into ampere conductors into length of the field system divided by 6 into turns per phase into cos phi. Now again simplify the expression, you will get the final expression for power. Pg is equal to pi by 2 root 2 into kW into L into width of the field system divided into Vs. Vs is the synchronous velocity, synchronous speed, into VAV into AC, where the AC is on ampere conductors per length of the field system, or this specific electric loading into cos phi. Now thrust or the linear force F is equal to efficiency into air gap power Pg divided by synchronous speed. Now from this we again get the expression for force as 1.1 into efficiency into winding factor into length of the field system into width into specific magnetic loading into specific electric loading into power factor. Now secondary copper losses, if it is S into Pg, so the mechanical power developed is equal to 1 minus S into Pg. We need to discuss about two effects, transverse effect and end effect, which happens in a linear induction motor. Now consider a short primary linear induction motor. Now the primary is where the stator, where the three-phase windings are housed, and we energize it with three-phase supply. As a result, uh, a traveling EMF will be induced. The flux, the current, induced current will take current path or closed loops like this in the secondary of the linear induction motor, and by the interaction of flux and current, a force will be or a motion will be formed in the direction which are mutually perpendicular to, and all these three forces, all these three quantities are mutually perpendicular to each other. Now here the current induced in the secondary, which is parallel to the direction of motion. Motion direction is like this, and the current parallel to the direction of motion has no effect on the production of thrust. So that will result in losses, but that will result in losses which is known as transverse edge effect, and these losses will reduce the effective amount of thrust. Now end effect in short primary case, end effect in this case, the current path of the secondary goes beyond the effect of goes beyond the primary width or effect of the primary. So that will not contribute to the production of thrust, effective thrust. So, but it result in losses also. And in end effect, at the exit end and the entry end, the teeth will have induced EMF due to the change in flux, which also result in the losses. Now here the flux distribution because of this becomes non-uniform, and the secondary current due to this induced EMF will result in extra copper losses. Now flux outside this active zone, that is the flux outside the influence of the primary will result in a retarding force, and finally it will reduce the power factor. So it can be reduced by increasing the number of poles. Now this is the equivalent circuit of a linear induction motor. So a simple resistance in the secondary cannot represent the moving system. So we should get a slip term, and we'll define the secondary resistance as R2 dash by S, where R2 dash is the equivalent secondary resistance referred to primary. Now this is split up into R2 dash and R2 dash into 1 minus S by S, where R2 dash, the I square R losses in R2 dash will represent the copper losses, rotor copper losses, and the rest of the power represents the output of the motor. Now we have secondary leakage reactance X2 dash, and for the primary winding we have the resistance R1, primary resistance R1, and primary leakage reactance X1. Then assume that the magnetic circuit has a finite reluctance, and hence MMF and current is required to set up the flux, and this can be represented as reactance XM. And the power loss in the iron part of the motor is represented as resistance Ri. Now these are the performance characteristics of a linear induction motor. Now references for preparing this lecture is again on the textbook on special electrical machines by E.G. Janardhanan. Thank you.